Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second to last press car of the year. Today, it's the new Opel Frontera. So what exactly is the Opel Frontera? It's the de facto replacement for the Opel Crossland, which used to be Opel's smallest crossover. Even though this car takes the Crossland's place in the lineup, it is bigger than the Mocha, which I've reviewed previously. It's generally a kind of a bulkier vehicle and tries to make the most out of space and practicality in a smaller footprint. It is also the first Opel vehicle to be based on the smart car platform. But we'll talk about the smart car platform in a moment, because this is my first experience with that as well. Anyway, you are joining me as I've just, departed from my house. We're going to take this car on a little spin in the city and on the highway. Then we're going to do that tour of the features and what have you. And maybe you'll get to see me take some photos again. So I should say briefly that this Frontera is indeed a hybrid. You can have the Frontera, at least in Macedonia, either as a hybrid or as a full EV. This one is obviously the hybrid. I've driven this powertrain before in different Stellantis vehicles, and well, here it is again, behaving mostly the same, frankly. But let's talk about the experience of driving the Frontera in town. Also, quickly, I want to mention where the name Frontera comes from, because that used to be a little slightly more off-road focused SUV in Opel's lineup, and what made it interesting was the fact that it was not an Opel at all. That was from like 30 years ago when Opel was still a part of General Motors. That was basically a rebadged, I think it was the Isuzu Rodeo, that car that has like 10 different other rebadged versions. Well, the Opel Frontera and the Vauxhall Frontera was one of them. But now we have this. What's it like in town? It's very good. I'm bang on at 50 kilometers an hour, and this is perfectly doable. The steering is nice and light, and it is impossibly light when you're maneuvering. It's relatively quiet in here, considering that we don't have much in the way of sound insulation, but more on that later. The seats are comfy. I like the driving position. It's super high, and there's a crap ton of headroom in here, which I love. You have an automatic transmission, which makes things easier, of course. And you also get this pretty excellent infotainment system that works exactly as it should. So outward visibility in town, generally pretty good. I do feel that the windshield could have been a little bit bigger. And the windows, they're pretty good as well. The rear window, I like that it's upright, which makes visibility a lot easier for that as well. These A-pillars are a little bit too thick and they're dirty. Why are they dirty? This car has 1,400 kilometers on it. Okay, odd. I didn't do that, obviously. I only picked up the car yesterday. And that's really about it. You see that? You see the physical climate controls there? We'll get to that momentarily. One other thing I want to mention while we're just standing around waiting here is that I was pleasantly surprised by this car's cornering capabilities. Now, it's not a sports car, and it's not even trying to put on a show in the slightest that it's a sporty car. It doesn't even try to be sporty. But for what it's worth, it actually takes corners surprisingly well. There was not a lot of lean in the corners, which is impressive considering the proportions. This is what some of my fellow journalists might like to call come on, dude. What my fellow journalists might like to refer to as a funky proportioned vehicle. That's very much what the Frontera is, in my opinion. But the cornering capabilities were more than fine, considering the proportions and the fact that it's not even trying to be a sporty car. So, like I said, because there's not a lot happening and because there's not a lot bad to say about the driving experience in town, well, I do have one bad thing to say generally, and that's the fact that there's not really a comfortable spot to rest your knee. This area, the center console, is all hard plastic, and that's the only realistic spot I can rest my knee, and it's not doing it for me. It's pretty hard, and the fact that this is all sort of nylon straps on the cup holders doesn't help matters either. But that's really about all in terms of true negatives. Can't wait to show you this car's other features, though, because one of the main names of the game with the Opel Frontera is that it's supposed to be affordable. And indeed it is. This particular model, which is completely fully loaded to the brim, it's the GS. It has all the options as far as I know. Apart from one very special option, which we'll get to, is about 30,000 US dollars. Equivalent of, at time of recording, 25,000 euro for my European viewers. Now that's pretty good, considering that European automakers tend to hold pretty significant premiums, but there are a few reasons and a few ways that they've gone about making the Frontera so affordable. And keep in mind, 25,000 euro is for the most expensive version of the Frontera. So yeah, my hometown now has surveillance cameras that monitor the speed that you're doing, and you get automatically fined. It's almost like we're Germany or something, and I have to be careful, especially because this isn't my car. If I exceed the speed limit, the dealership gets the fine. That wouldn't be good. Are you hearing that, by the way? Yeah, we'll get to that. It's one of my favorite cost-cutting features in this car. Anyway, I have run out of things to say. The town driving experience in the Frontera is generally pretty solid. One other small complaint I have is that the seats, while comfy and pretty ergonomic, are not up to the usual Opel standard. And that's a shame because Opel has some pretty fantastic seats. But other than that, I have run out of things to say, so give me a few minutes. I will join you all on the highway. Hello again. We are just about to join the highway. While we're on our way to the highway entrance, I wanted to quickly mention that this car is a hybrid and it has regen braking. If I let go of the gas, you'll see on the display, there you go, regen braking. And it actually engages the third brake light when you, or all of the brake lights, more specifically, when you let go of the gas when it starts regen braking. It's pretty good. It's a little bit disconcerting because you are pretty much constantly, except now, constantly hearing a gas engine in the background, but then you let go of the gas and it just regen brakes you almost to a stop. Not fully, but almost. It's a relatively effective system, but I wish there was an option to adjust the settings, adjust the strength of the regen. There isn't. I just looked through the infotainment system. There are no car settings at all. You can't adjust anything of those lines. So the stock regen braking is what you're getting. All right, I'll slow down. I've probably explained this before, but when the speed is in blue, it means we're running on electric power, and when it's in white, it's the gas engine is running. There you go. All right, so let's see what kind of acceleration we get from the Opel Frontera. Go! Okay, not too bad. It's not particularly fast. Doesn't have a lot of power, so that's unsurprising, or maybe that's because I didn't floor it too much. I floored it as much as a normal person would while joining the highway. Have you noticed that it's kind of loud in here? Yeah, there's not a lot of sound insulation to speak of, and I'll get into why that is later, but there isn't anything particularly that stands out. There's no more road noise than wind noise or more wind noise than road noise. It's just a little bit louder than usual. So there's very little wind noise, which is impressive considering the proportions and stuff. I think we have roadworks coming up again. Or maybe they forgot to take the signs down. Actually, upon closer analysis, I'll be quiet. Upon closer analysis, there's a little bit of road noise and a little bit of wind noise, but really, for not having a lot of sound insulation and being, a boxy, bulky thing, it's not that bad. It really isn't. So really, for being a big, bulky thing, big, boxy, bulky SUV, the noises and stuff are really not that bad. Anyway, I'm gonna give it some beans. More than last time. Okay. That was pretty good, actually. Pretty relatively sprightly acceleration. Yeah, I would say if you turn up the music a little bit and stuff like that, you'll be fine on the highway. Again, relative to everything, this level of NVH is really not bad at all. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is the ride, which is pretty good. It can be a bit crashy sometimes, but this is a pretty comfy car, all things considered. See what we're doing in terms of fuel economy. Not bad. So I'm not sure if the electric motor comes on at these speeds, but it does when you regen brake, when you're going downhill like I am now. see if I can overtake these trucks without too much hassle. And what is this? Trucks are now overtaking other trucks? Alright, screw this. Don't have time for y'alls today. So overall, really, the experience behind the wheel of the Opel Frontera is pretty good relative to everything, as I said. It is pretty good, so good job to Opel for that one. And welcome to the usual filming location. Let's give a quick tour and an explanation of some things about the Opel Frontera here. As I mentioned a little bit ago, this car is based on the Smart Car platform. You're probably wondering, what the hell is a Smart Car platform? I thought Smart was a different car company, and, well, you'd be right about that, but the Smart Car platform is kind of an offshoot of the EMP1 platform, designed for more affordable, kind of lower-priced cars. And according to the research that I did on the internet yesterday, so you know it's got to be true, right? This platform was developed by a Stellantis subsidiary in India. I'm going to refer with the sales staff when I return this car, and I will put a little message on the screen confirming whether or not that's true. But the Smart Car platform underpins, well, obviously the Frontera, the Citroën C3, and the Citroën C3 Aircross, which is a sister car to the Frontera. And when I say sister car, I mean that in the quite literal sense. It's not like usual Stellantis fare where they share a couple of components. No. The Frontera and the C3 Aircross, they share bodywork. And the Frontera, obviously, the main difference is that it has all of the traditional, familiar Opel styling traits, which we will get to momentarily. The Frontera, as you can see, is very boxy and kind of tall and bulky, and that's because it's designed to offer a lot of space in a relatively small footprint. And we'll have a look at that in a moment. Let's have a look at the styling features. The front end is typical Opel fare. You got the familiar Opel headlights. I will demonstrate those to you now. There you go. There's no like light bar in the front or a light up Opel badge, and I really don't understand the idea of making the Opel badge black and then placing it on a black sort of plate there. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. You also get a small grille opening there and there. No front fog lights on this one. And you might have heard earlier that this is the fully loaded one. Yeah, I don't think you can get front fog lights at all. Down the side, you can see more of the boxy proportions and that character line that goes from the back. This particular Frontera is on alloy wheels, being the GS, the fully loaded one. As standard, you get Steelies and hubcaps, and if you want, you can have white Steelies with no hubcaps, which looks really cool. I'll put a picture up on the screen so you can see. Also, there's a contrasting black roof and this orangish red color. That's what it's called. And the tasteful branding on the side. The reason why it looks like that is because the whole marketing thing with the Frontera is it's supposed to be the superhero of the family, as evidenced by the lightning bolts. I would have dressed up as a superhero, but you do not want to see that, trust me. In the back, you get those dual layer headlights, what the hell? Tail lights, rather. A pretty signature Opel styling trait, at least for the Frontera. You get a little bit of silver and black cladding there. There's your exhaust pipe. There's the rear fog light in the center. It looks like it's supposed to be a central exhaust. I think it's kind of cool. And you get blacked out badging on this particular model. Otherwise, it's obviously not blacked out. So what do I think of the Frontera's design? I think it's actually pretty cool. It's very unique, and it definitely grabs your attention. Oh, I almost forgot dimensions. So it's definitely a cool design, and it has all of the signature Opel styling traits, but it's a different sort of design than what we're used to from Opel, and I think that it does a good job of being charming and interesting. But I also think that the white Steelies look better than these diamond cut alloys. And I think I'm not in the minority in saying that. Anyway, let's move on to the other stuff. Here's the key fob, pretty typical Stellantis fare, except there's a button missing. That, as I'm sure a lot of you will remember, is the button to turn on the headlights in case you want to find the car in a crowded parking lot at nighttime or something like that. And this is really one of the first little bits of evidence that the Frontera is all about affordability. You might be thinking, what kind of money are they saving removing the button? not a lot, but they're also saving money on removing that module that communicates to the car, hey, turn the headlights on. And you know, when you're working with assembling cars in the EU and different things like that, I should say that the Frontera is assembled in Slovakia at the Trnava facility, which also does the Peugeot 208 and the Citroen C3 and the C3 Aircross, so on and so forth. By removing that module, you save a little bit of money. Also, the Opel badge is way down here for some reason. Usually it's a little bit higher up, but I digress. Car's unlocked right now. You also get lock. And, well, that's the gist of it. Thank you. Taillights and headlights come on when you unlock the doors as well. And it's a switchblade key. Anyway, no automatic tailgate, so we're gonna walk up here and open it ourselves using the magic of our hands and arms. Cargo area. Good time to mention that the Frontera is available with 7 seats, but this one doesn't have 7 seats, obviously. So the cargo area varies depending on where you have the adjustable floor here. So it's 460 liters, 420, or 301, again, depending on in which position this adjustable floor is in. You do get a standard parcel shelf here that's held in by strings. You get some hooks in there. So you do get some illumination and, what was it? Yes, these little divots where you can store items. There's some type of liquid in this bag. I'm not sure what it is, but that's what it's being used for there. If you fold down the rear seats, you get this much room. And then when you're done, you also get a little storage area to hold, I believe, the warning triangle by the shape and the way it's been designed. Anyway, once you're done, you put your hand in that divot and you close the tailgate. Very simple. Space in the back, something that the Frontera should excel at. Let's see. Absolutely yes. I am 5'11.5" and a Discord moderator in width, as you know, and I got plenty of knee room. This seat is in my driving position. Plenty of knee room here. There's a little storage area in the seat. There's a 12-volt outlet down there and 2 USB-C ports. Very useful stuff. And headroom, sorry, bad hair day. Headroom is also excellent owing to the car's proportions. Again, there's a tiny little hump in the floor. There's no center console storage area, I should say. There's a tiny little hump in the floor. So if I just sit down here, this is a pretty wide car, so you shouldn't have a lot of problems. And indeed, this is perfectly doable. There's plenty of room left in the footwells, though the seats aren't particularly wide, so you might have a little bit of pushing with the shoulders with your passengers, but that's fine. And you also got some overhead lighting with this panel that they've been using for well over 15 years now. And also there's a little bit of door storage. And this nice little material on the armrest, which contrasts with the rest of the hard plastic door panel. Anyway, so in terms of back seat room, the Frontera, great job. What about the front? No keyless entry on this car. I don't think it's available at all, but you do have power folding mirrors. Interior, with these lovely cloth bucket seats. They're actually pretty standard Opel fare. They're not AGR approved seats, as I said before, which is a bit of a shame because I've always thought that Opel has the seat game in a chokehold, but we'll let them off. The seats are completely manual, of course, and that's really about it. There's one thing I wanted to point out on the door panel. The recycling symbol on this little piece of fabric. Yes, the car is absolutely full of recycled materials, as is so popular nowadays. But that's a good thing. Anyway, let's get in. And now we are inside the Frontera. Indeed, no starter motor because this is a hybrid. Can we rev it though? Yes. Kind of. But we can actually rev it. Nice. First thing that greets you in the Frontera is this typical Opel steering wheel. It's a little bit different than the others, but it's still typical Opel fare. You got your visor design incorporated into the central area and this big silvery spoke and a lot of white stitching as well. Very easy to turn. The power steering is very well set up for low-speed maneuvering and things like that, and it weighs up admirably so at higher speeds. You got a bunch of cruise control and other related items on the left, and you got media controls on the right. And in the middle, we have the horn, which predictably sounds like this. This particular Frontera, being a hybrid, sends power to the wheels through a 6-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, controlled through this thing that you should be familiar with by now. It works very simply. You put your foot on the brake, pull it all the way down to go into drive, halfway up for neutral, and all the way up for reverse, which brings up your backup camera and front and rear parking sensors, which this one gets as standard. You also get low gear mode. I'm not really sure why this car has that. Not like you can get it with all-wheel drive, although more on that later. And then you just push the P and you're in park. No manual mode, that's really it. Simple stuff. And you got your electronic parking brake here, which now actually engages automatically when you put the car in park, sometimes. Infotainment system. That's the screen size. And it's a pretty simple thing. It's running the latest version of Stellantis' software, which I've used before, and it's pretty good. One thing I really like about this infotainment system is that the screen has a matte layer over it, so it doesn't attract quite as many fingerprints as it would normally. It's a pretty simple thing. You got your power button volume up and down here. There's actually, I'm just realizing, there's no physical volume control anywhere. The driver gets the command on the steering wheel, but the passenger will just have to do this. But that's fine. A lot of cars do that now. I don't really mind. So over here you have a bunch of shortcuts. So there's media. If there are any Macedonian viewers watching, yes, I do listen to that quite often actually. There's Apple CarPlay, which finally works flawlessly without a cable. Thank you. There's built-in navigation, which this one actually has. I don't think the others do. Hell, the others don't. The base model doesn't even have an infotainment system at all. And settings. Various different items here that you can adjust. Super simple stuff. It's a great infotainment system for what it is. The screen isn't too big or too distracting. It's very responsive, and it does everything that you need it to do. Over here you have physical climate controls. And yes, every version of the Frontera gets physical climate controls. And it's super simple. You got 5 buttons and 4 levers. Sorry, my camera was acting up. You got automatic mode, front defrost, AC max, rear defrost, and regular AC. That's your temperature. Goes up and down. That's your zones, and that doesn't go up and down. It only goes one way. That's your recirculating or outside air, and that's your fan speed, which goes up and down as well. Super simple stuff. Crap, I just noticed the dust on the lens. So it's a pretty simple thing. It's not distracting. You don't have to go into the infotainment system. And for once, there's no separate menu in the infotainment system. That's all you have. The thing that fascinates me about this climate control system, and another, I guess, method of cost cutting, is even though this is automatic climate control, it's not dual zone. So you get automatic with a single temperature. And if the passenger doesn't like it, too bad. Over here you have a wireless charger and a couple of USB-C ports. Not every Frontera gets that, but I'm glad it's here. You got cup holders with these nylon straps that include little drawings of the car. How cool. Shifter that you saw, the parking brake, and the center console. Pretty simple. That's the center control stack. There's not a lot going on. Well, there's also the power locks and the hazards, and that little climate vent there. You also get 2 climate vents for the passenger, and you get another one for the driver here as well. But that's really about it for the center control stack, so we can move this along to the gauge cluster screen. The gauge cluster screen is pretty standard for Stellantis anyway. It's similar to the one in the Grandland, except the screen itself is bigger. You get your fuel gauge on the left and your temperature on the right. That's the 0 is obviously the speed, and you also get what gear you're in. If the speed is in white, it means the engine is running. If the speed is in blue, it means the electric motor is running. And currently, as you can probably tell, there's the hybrid display is currently on, but you can change what's shown on the screen using this little button at the end of the wiper stalk. So you can have nothing, just the speed in the center and stuff like that. You can have your trip data, so 2 long-term trip odometers, your instant fuel consumption, and the hybrid gauge again. I have not found a way to reconfigure this screen to show you a tachometer. Not that you need one, because you have an automatic transmission and you don't really need to know what revs you're doing, but it would be cool if there's an option. In fact, I'm going to check right now. No, there isn't. Okay. So that's really about it for that. You also get your ambient temperature and a whole bunch of warning lights as well, and the overall odometer. Turn signal stock. This is the new Stellantis turn signal stock that's on all of the smart car platform cars. By the way, did you hear the turn signals? We'll come back to that in a moment. It's one of the most interesting features about this car. Over here, you have a headlight leveling switch, a physical switch. I don't know that I've seen this before. A switch that you can hold down to disable the speed limit warning, and another switch that you can hold to disable the lane keep assist and lane departure warning system. That I have seen before, but I don't recall seeing a button to disable the speed limit warning, and I really appreciate that. By the way, there's no button on the end of this stock here like there is on the Wiper stock. This is just for symmetry. It doesn't do anything. Door handle. There's a lot of silver trim around the interior, which I like. The door panel has all of your regular switches. That's power windows, of course. Yes, predictably. I can't tell if there's automatic windows on all four because there's no like two steps when you push the switch. That's your power mirror controls. That's left and right, of course. And if you push down on the switch, activates your power folding mirrors. And you can also see this car has blind spot monitoring as well. And that's really all the bases covered as far as the interior. You have an auto dimming rear view mirror. You have your overhead lighting, same panel as a bunch of other Stellantis products going years back, and a couple of roadside assistance and SOS buttons there. And your sun visor, which contains non-illuminated mirrors. And that's all the bases covered in terms of the interior. I should say, even though this is a cheap car, you do get tilt and telescoping for the steering wheel. A lot of cheap cars have only tilt without the telescoping. Yes, difficult to do that with one hand, you see. And there's a pretty good amount of adjustment in the driving position as well. Can't knock Opel for that. By the way, yes, did you hear that beep? All right, this is one of the most interesting ways I've seen for cost cutting. I'm not sure if this is a cost cutting measure, but it sounds like it would be. So you know how a lot of modern cars, they tend to have melodic chimes to warn you of, exceeding the speed limit and the seat belts and different things like that. The Frontera here has a beeper, like a microwave or an old cell phone. So the turn signals are the best they could do with the internal hardware, but you already heard. So the turn signals are I'm assuming the best they could do with the hardware that they had, but that beeper is your everything. It's obviously the exceeding the speed limit warning chime, but when I open the door, and then when I put the car in reverse, and that beep continues if the parking sensors detect an object close to you. And watch this, I'm going to turn the car off and leave the key in the ignition, and I'm going to open the door. Have a listen to what happens. I can safely say that I have never seen something like this before. There it goes again. And it's a fascinating cost-cutting measure. I will give that to Opel. I don't know if it's the one I would go for, but sure. And it's kind of charming in a way. It's beepy, and it reminds me of like an old piece of technology, which I'm very much into. So as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. All right. Let's round this off with quality and storage. Well, I mean, the build quality is pretty solid. This car feels like it's been well put together, but you can also tell that it's been designed as a vehicle to be affordable, because there are absolutely no soft touch materials anywhere at all. The only thing that's soft in here is the steering wheel, and even that's relatively hard, and the seats. Everything else is hard plastic, which on one hand, I understand. That's completely fine. And it also means they have basically no piano black, except for that and, the screen area in general. But I can't help but feeling that they could have at least afforded softer touch materials on the top of, at least on top of the dash and on top of the door panel here. But the armrest is actually pretty soft, and so is this armrest here. So I told a lie. That you do have some softer areas, the important ones, but it's kind of, you know, hard plasticky in here. And I understand why they did that, but because I'm so not used to such things anymore when reviewing these cars, it came as a little bit of a surprise. But I get it. If that's what it takes for this car to be affordable, one of the things that it takes, then I can live with that. In terms of storage, you have a sizable door pockets, can easily fit larger bottles, although you do have to slot them in like that, which I'm not a fan of myself. Phone storage / wireless charger, the 2 cup holders, a little bit of extra storage in here, the armrest. Hey, we should appreciate that this car gets an armrest as standard. A lot of cheap cars wouldn't do that. And the glove box, which sometimes doesn't open properly. I'm not exactly sure why that happened. Come on. Okay, the glove box, I've never had that happen before. The glove box refuses to open, but I did manage to open it once, so rest assured, there is a glove box in there, and it's pretty decently sized. So I completely missed this part while filming the car originally, but if you press this button on the steering wheel, that's also a scroller, you get a sub-menu. You have a driver assistant menu, and you also have user settings where you can adjust things like what gauges are shown. No, there's still no tachometer. The units, the brightness, and different things like that. I'm sorry about my voice, by the way, but I caught a little bit of a cold while I've had this car. So overall, the Frontera's interior is a little bit plasticky, but it's not a bad place to spend time at all. And I really enjoy how much headroom I have. So, good job, Opel. And finally, the powertrain. This particular Frontera has the top-of-the-line 1.2-liter hybrid powertrain, so there's a 1.2-liter turbo 3-cylinder and a small electric motor that lives inside the gearbox. Thank you. Total output is 145 horsepower and 230 newton-meters of torque, and that goes to the front wheels, and only the front wheels for now, through a 6-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. That's the transmission in which the electric motor lives. 0 to 100 kph, according to Opel, is 9.9 seconds, or about there. About 9 seconds, and the top speed is 180 kilometers an hour. That's 112 miles an hour. Also available is a weaker 110 horsepower version of the same powertrain, and there's also a fully electric version of the Frontera with a single front-mounted electric motor, making about 113 horsepower. And these are the other stats about the EV in case you need to know. Doggy, hello. And apparently Opel claims that there's this powertrain allows the Frontera to do about 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers of driving, which is pretty excellent fuel economy. Now, notice how I said it's only front-wheel drive. That decision is a little bit befuddling to me personally, because Opel is trying to sell this as an adventure type of vehicle, like an explorative type of vehicle, if you will. And that's evidenced in the fact that you can get the Frontera from the factory with a roof-mounted tent, and I've seen the tent in real life. So I think that an all-wheel drive version of the Frontera is pretty much guaranteed eventually, because this powertrain can have all-wheel drive. You can get the Jeep Avenger and the Alfa Romeo Junior as well, yes. You can get both of those cars with this powertrain and all-wheel drive. So I think that if they're going to sell this car as like an adventurous type of car, there's definitely going to be a version with all-wheel drive, possibly later down the line. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Opel Frontera. It's a very interesting vehicle, make no mistake. I think it's the most interesting car that's currently sold by Opel anywhere. And I really appreciate it for what it is. It's designed to provide practical family transport with a hybrid powertrain at a pretty significantly affordable price. And while I'm not sure about some of the methods that Stellantis has gone with to reduce costs, this is a pretty solid vehicle in its own right. It drives well, it has all the equipment you could need, and in some cases more, and it's overall a pretty solid package. Because not a lot of people will sell you a vehicle with these sorts of proportions and practicality for that sort of price, especially not legacy automakers in Europe. The Opel Frontera gets a score of 8 out of 10. Thank you everyone for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Blue Sky and follow the community tab. There will be a link in the description as always. Let me know what you think of the Opel Frontera in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.